Would you keep running if the dark erased everything behind you? It was 4 a.m. when I stepped off the bus. The world was still. That quiet hour between night and morning, when even the air feels like it hasn't woken yet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe but unsettles. I adjusted my jacket against the chill, shoved my hands in my pockets, and started down the familiar street toward home. Rows of small houses lined both sides, identical in their sleep. Driveways sat empty except for a few cars under blankets of dew. Porch lights glowed here and there, but mostly it was the lamps above tall poles humming faintly that kept the street alive. Pools of pale yellow broke the darkness into islands, each one holding me for a few steps before I crossed into the next. My phone was dead, had been for hours. I'd meant to charge it during my shift, but between customers and cleaning I forgot. The black screen felt heavier than it should in my pocket, as if it knew what it meant. No map, no call for a ride, no music to distract me from the silence. Just me, my thoughts, and the steady tap of my shoes on concrete. I tried humming a song to myself, something to fill the air, but the sound fell flat, swallowed too quickly by the stillness. So I stopped. Halfway down the block, I heard it creak. I froze. It was sharp, wooden, and out of place. There weren't any wooden fences here, just iron railings, chain link, trimmed hedges. The sound echoed faintly, then stopped. I looked around. Nothing moved. Not a branch, not a curtain. Wind, I muttered under my breath, though the air was dead still. I kept walking, faster now. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, too loud, bouncing off the houses like I was being followed. A few blocks later, a lamp behind me flickered. I turned in time to see it buzz faintly and go dark. The black that filled its place wasn't just shadow. It was thick, heavy, like a curtain drawn across the world. The edges of the sidewalk vanished into it. I stood there staring. The rest of the street behind remained lit, but that one circle of light was gone, just gone. Bad wiring, I told myself. They always cut corners on this street. But then the next one went out, closer. I felt it more than saw it. The way the dark seemed to press forward. I swallowed hard, adjusted my jacket again, and forced myself to walk. My steps quickened. Another lamp went out. The dark didn't just replace the light, it erased everything in it. The fences, the cars, the trimmed hedges, they vanished as if the world itself were dissolving. My chest tightened. I faced forward and kept moving. Faster. Don't look back, I thought. Don't look back. Of course I did. The row of lights behind me was falling one by one, each popping out with a faint buzz pop, leaving nothing but that unnatural dark pressing closer. It didn't creep like ordinary night. It advanced, swallowing, and everything it touched, gone. I ran. The lamps ahead still burned bright, casting their overlapping pools down the endless stretch of street. I sprinted under them, heart pounding, breath ragged. My shoes slapped against the pavement, each sound magnified until I couldn't tell if I was hearing just myself. Because there was something else now. Tap. Tap footsteps, slightly out of rhythm with mine. I ran harder, refusing to look back. I passed another block, then another. The houses blurred, but the pattern never changed. White siding, short porches, the same mailbox design again and again. I passed a blue car on the right, and then 2 minutes later, another blue car, same model, same dent in the bumper. My stomach dropped. The street wasn't leading anywhere. It was folding in on itself, stretching like a loop. My house should have been here by now. The cross street with the corner store should have appeared. But there was nothing. Just this same repeating set of houses, lamps, and fences. A faint ringing drifted through the air, metallic, high-pitched, like a phone vibrating on a table. My dead phone. I dug it out of my pocket anyway, thumbed the button. The screen stayed black. Still, the sound continued. Louder now, like it was coming from the street itself. "No," I whispered. "No, no." The lamp above me flickered. I bolted forward before it could go out. My breath hitched in gasps, throat raw. The world seemed smaller, tighter, like every step I took only wound the street tighter around me. I tried leaving the sidewalk, cut across a lawn. The grass crunched beneath my feet, but the moment I reached the other side, I found myself back on the same sidewalk, facing the same stretch of lamps. I tried a driveway next, veering toward a garage door, but the concrete sloped, curved, and dropped me right back onto the street. It was funneling me, forcing me forward. The dark behind spread faster now, each lamp dying in quick succession. The silence thickened, broken only by my desperate footsteps. Then, under it all, a low vibration began to rumble through the ground. Faint at first, then stronger, rattling my bones. The footsteps behind were louder too, closer. I risked a glance. Nothing. Just the advancing dark, but it was closer than before, much closer. I stumbled, caught myself, and kept running. My legs screamed with exhaustion, lungs burning, but stopping wasn't an option. Stopping meant being swallowed. I passed the same blue car again. This time, the windshield was cracked. The repetition wasn't perfect anymore. The houses leaned slightly, windows tilted like the world was being stretched out of shape. Stop, I begged, to the street, to myself, to whatever was listening. The dark didn't stop. Ahead, the lamps glowed endlessly, but their halos began to shrink, leaving smaller and smaller pools of light. The spaces between them widened. Each dash through the gap felt like plunging into the mouth of something waiting to bite. Somewhere behind, a siren wailed, faint, distant. Then it cut off abruptly, like it had been swallowed too. I wanted to scream, but my throat was too dry, too raw. All I could do was keep running, each step heavier, slower. And then I realized something. The footsteps weren't behind me anymore. They were beside me. I turned my head. The space beside me was empty. Just the stretch of sidewalk, the pool of lamplight. But I heard it. Every slap of a sole on pavement, matching me just a half beat off. Invisible. Close enough that if I reached out, I didn't. I faced forward, tears blurring my vision. My body shook with fatigue, but the street kept pulling me on, promising no end, only more repetition. The darkness behind had swallowed everything. No bus stop, no houses, no world, just black pressing forward. I kept running, and I understood. There might be no end. Only this street, only the sound of my footsteps echoing forever. Only the dark swallowing everything behind. A street without end. A library after dark, where the books whisper your name. I never meant to stay past closing. The library at night has its own personality, one I had never truly met before that evening. The air smelled less of coffee and ink, and more of paper dust and varnished wood. The lamps, all lined up in patient rows, cast warm circles of light on the long oak tables. Outside their glow, shadows swallowed the stacks. I had been bent over my notes for hours, tracing lines of text I would never remember, fighting against the rhythm of my blinking eyes. The quiet had cradled me, heavy and warm. I must have slipped into sleep with my pen still in my hand. When I woke, the light felt different, dull, flattened. I raised my head, confused, my cheek stuck to the page. The overhead lamps hummed faintly, but the desk lamps were gone. Darkness filled the upper floors, spilling between the bookcases like black water. The library was closed. I checked my phone, but the screen glared back with no signal bars. The Wi-Fi was locked. I wasn't surprised. This wing was notorious for dead spots. Normally, that was a blessing. Tonight, it was a trap. I stood, stretched, gathered my things. My backpack felt heavier than it should. My footsteps echoed too loudly against the polished floor. Each step seemed to wake the silence instead of disturbing it. I moved toward the exit, rehearsing an awkward apology for the night guard. But there was no guard. The lobby was empty. The revolving doors were locked, the kind that needed a key card after hours. I pushed anyway. The glass shuddered against my palms, immovable. My throat tightened. I reminded myself, someone would check. Someone always checked. I only needed to wait. I sat back down at my table. The silence swelled again. I noticed the clock on the wall. Its second hand had stopped, or maybe it just ticked too quietly to hear. That was when I heard it. A creak, like weight pressing against an old floorboard. My head snapped toward the stacks. The rows were still, columns of books stretching into the dark. Nothing moved. I told myself it was the building settling. I'd heard that phrase enough times, though I'd never known what it really meant. I packed my things again. If I had to spend the night, I'd at least find a couch or a softer chair. The reading rooms upstairs had armchairs near the windows. I climbed the staircase slowly, each footstep a hollow drumbeat. The higher I went, the stranger the air became, cooler, thinner. My breath seemed to hang longer before dissolving. Then I heard something new, whispers. I thought it was the radiator bleeding air through the pipes. But it had rhythm. It carried syllables, like a conversation buried under blankets. I froze at the landing, peering between the rails. The sound leaked from the nearest aisle of books. Whisper upon whisper, my name among them. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It couldn't be real. But the word repeated, my name, spoken as though someone had just read it aloud from a page. I gripped the railing and forced myself to step forward. My shoes pressed against the carpet with no sound. The whispers faded as I neared the shelf. Rows of spines faced me, some dusty, some new, all silent. I reached out, touched one, and pulled. The book came free without resistance. Its pages fluttered open to the middle as though guided. My eyes scanned the text. Nothing unusual, just a treatise on medieval trade routes. No mention of me, no whispering lips hidden in the margins. I slid it back and nearly laughed at myself. Stress, that's all. Too much caffeine, too little sleep. Then something caught my eye. A gap, small, but sharp against the perfect order of the shelf. In that space sat a book I knew immediately did not belong. It was slim, dark blue cover, no library sticker, no call number on its spine. I recognized it before I even touched it. My diary, the one I kept hidden in the drawer of my dorm desk. My hand hovered in the air. A chill walked up my arms. My diary should have been miles away. Not here, not catalogued among atlases and dictionaries. I pulled it out. The weight was familiar. The elastic band stretched the same way it always had. I opened it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was mine, every entry, but the most recent pages those I hadn't written yet. The first new line read, "You will hear the ringing next." As if on cue, a ringing split the silence. Not a phone, not a bell. More like the old desk phones in the administration offices. Loud, mechanical. It came from deeper in the stacks. I slammed the diary shut, heart pounding so hard I thought it might echo. My breath stung in my throat. My instincts screamed to run, but there was nowhere to run. Only more shelves, more whispers. The phone rang again, and again. My hands shook as I flipped another page. The next entry read, "If you answer, it will know you." I dropped the diary. It thudded against the carpet. My body refused to bend to pick it up. The ringing stopped. For a long time, there was nothing, just the heavy silence pressing down on my shoulders. Then, a new sound came, footsteps, soft, slow, coming from the far end of the aisle. I backed away, every nerve screaming. The air seemed to pulse with each step, like the shelves themselves leaned closer to hear. I whispered to myself, over and over, not real, not real, not real, but the footsteps kept coming. I darted into the next aisle, heart hammering, and crouched behind the corner shelf. My knees pressed into the rough carpet. The footsteps reached the junction, paused. Silence stretched. I clenched my fists, waiting, and then another whisper, clear this time, right above me. My name. I bolted, through aisles, past rows, down the staircase. My bag banged against my back, books jostling inside. The air seemed thicker, as though I were running underwater. I reached the lobby again, gasping. The locked doors loomed in the dim light. I pounded on them, fists raw against the glass. No one outside, not a soul. When I turned, the diary lay on the floor behind me. I hadn't brought it down. I didn't want to touch it, but leaving it felt worse. I bent, snatched it up, and forced myself to open again. The next entry, "You will not leave until the final page." The words blurred as I read them. My eyes stung. My body shook. I tried tearing the pages out. The paper resisted, fibers stretching but never breaking. I tried slamming it shut and throwing it across the room. But when I turned, it was back in my hand, warm like it had a pulse. I stumbled to a chair and collapsed. The diary rested on my lap, patient. The whispers rose again, louder now, layered like dozens of voices reading at once. They filled the lobby, rolling from the shelves in waves. My name drowned among them, repeated until it lost meaning. I flipped through the diary, desperate. Every page was written. Every page described what I had already done, falling asleep, waking, hearing the whispers, finding the book, word for word, until the last page. It was blank, except for one unfinished sentence at the top. When he looks up, he sees, my eyes dragged upward. Across the glass doors, in the reflection, stood a figure behind me. I spun, but the lobby was empty. Only the hum of the lamps, the whisper of pages turning on shelves without hands. I looked back at the diary. The sentence had finished itself, his own reflection moving when he does not. My breath caught. I turned again, slowly, toward the glass. The reflection stared at me, same face, same eyes. But when I raised my hand, it stayed still. I froze. The whispers stopped. The air went silent. And then, softly, the reflection smiled. I didn't. The diary shut itself. My hand clenched around it, knuckles white. The reflection's smile widened, teeth glinting in the dim light. I don't remember how long I stood there. Minutes. Hours. The clock still hadn't moved. The final page remains blank now, except for one new line, written while I held the pen still in my backpack. He waits, and so I do. A late passenger hears his name called by announcements in an empty station. I missed it by seconds. The red taillights of the last evening train flickered faintly through the fog as it disappeared down the tracks, leaving only the lingering smell of metal and ozone, the kind you only notice when everything else is quiet. My shoes clicked against the platform as I slowed to a stop, shoulders hunched against the damp air. The timetable board above me hummed faintly, rows of departures and arrivals scrolling down, but every line ended the same way, canceled or departed. I looked down at my phone. 5% battery, the red icon glaring at me like a warning. The fog was so thick I could barely see the opposite platform, just the faint glow of a single yellow lamp hanging crookedly. The entire station felt hollow, drained, as if even the echo of people had already gone home. For a while, I simply stood there, listening, my own breathing, the faint hum of electrical wires overhead, the occasional drip of condensation falling from the steel beams to the tracks below. That was all. I decided to wait. Maybe a maintenance train would pass. Maybe I could catch a bus outside the station. But for now, it was safer on the platform than wandering off into the fog-choked streets. I slid onto a cold metal bench. The plastic armrest dug into my side. My phone lit the fog with its bluish glow as I opened maps, trying to see if anything nearby was walkable. The loading circle spun, then froze. No service. That was when I heard it. A voice. From the ceiling speakers above the tracks. The same ones that had announced departures earlier, when the place was still alive. Only now, the words were slow, broken by static. Attention, passengers. Remaining on platform 3. The sound fizzled, then went silent. I sat up. My chest tightened. Platform 3 was the one I was on. I looked around instinctively, but there was no one else. The benches were empty, the ticket machines dark. Even the little cafu near the stairs had its shutters rolled down. The speakers crackled again. Please, remain seated, until further notice. A loud creak echoed from somewhere high in the rafters, like the station itself was groaning. I swallowed hard. Maybe it was an automated system. Maybe it still ran on a timer, even when the staff had left. But then, why had it mentioned passengers, plural, when I was the only one here? The fog pressed against the glass panes of the station like damp cotton. My phone buzzed once in my hand. Low battery, 4%. I shoved it back into my pocket and tried to steady my thoughts. That was when I heard the first set of footsteps. They were faint, distant, as though someone was walking the length of the platform on the other side. Slow, deliberate, leather soles clicking against the cement. I leaned forward, squinting through the fog, but saw nothing. Only the dull yellow light haloing the opposite bench. "Hello?" I called out, my voice smaller than I intended. The footsteps stopped instantly. Silence. I forced myself to breathe evenly. There had to be staff, I told myself. Security. Someone checking the station before closing. But then why didn't they answer? The speakers hissed again. Please, stay where you are. My name. The air turned cold inside my lungs. My name clear as day, cutting through the static like a knife. I didn't move. My mind swirled with explanations, none of them making sense. A prank. But who would know I was here? My location wasn't shared with anyone. My phone was almost dead. I'd told no one about this trip. I tried to stand, but the announcement boomed again, louder this time, filling every corner of the empty station. My name. Do not attempt to leave the platform. The voice wasn't quite human. It had the cadence of a recording, but there was something off, an unnatural emphasis on certain syllables, as if someone unfamiliar with language was trying to mimic it. The fog outside shifted like a curtain being drawn. Shapes seemed to move in it, tall and thin, pacing near the edge of the tracks. I told myself it was imagination, that I was only seeing what I feared to see. My phone vibrated once more in my pocket. 3%. I pulled it out. The screen was cracked with static, like a broken television feed. No bars of service, yet across the screen, letters scrolled slowly, syncing with the voice above. Stay. The ringing of a bell shattered the silence, the same tone they used to signal approaching trains. My heart leapt before logic caught up. The timetable had been clear. No more trains tonight. And yet, in the distance, through the fog, a faint white glow bled along the rails. The announcement returned, softer now, coaxing almost. My name, your train is arriving. Please remain seated. I stood up anyway. My legs trembled, but instinct told me I had to move, to leave, to get out of this station. But the stairs that led up to the exit were drowned in shadow, and every time I glanced at them, it felt as though the fog deepened, thickened, warning me back. The light along the rails grew stronger, pulsing in rhythm, as though the train were breathing. The faint rumble of wheels reached my ears, but it didn't sound right. Too uneven, too organic, like something dragging itself along steel. I stumbled toward the edge of the platform, gripping the yellow railing. My phone slipped in my sweaty hand, screen flickering. 2%. The train, or whatever it was close now. The fog peeled away in strips, revealing a silhouette. A carriage, yes, but bent wrong. Its windows warped, its sides scarred like melted wax. It crawled instead of rolled, each shuddering movement accompanied by the grinding scream of metal. I wanted to run. My legs refused. The announcement purred from above, calm as ever. Board now. My name. This is your last connection. I backed away from the platform edge, shaking my head. My phone buzzed violently in my hand, the vibration sharp against my palm. A new message appeared across the screen, letters smearing as the battery gave out. No staff exists here. And then the screen went black. I dropped the phone. It clattered against the cement. The warped carriage screeched to a halt in front of me, doors splitting open with a hiss that smelled of rust and wet earth. The interior was pitch black, no seats, no lights, only a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. I turned toward the stairs. Maybe if I ran fast enough. The speakers roared, "Do not leave." Every light in the station flickered, buzzing like angry hornets. The bench behind me rattled against the ground. The fog pressed closer against the glass, like faces leaning in to watch. I froze, chest heaving, then looked back at the train. Its door remained open, waiting. The footsteps began again, closer this time, circling the platform. They didn't belong to anyone I could see. They belonged to the station itself, heavy and deliberate, shaking the metal grates with each impact. I closed my eyes. There was no choice left. Stay here, and something would come out of that fog to claim me. Step inside the train, and at least I'd be moving somewhere, anywhere but here. I opened my eyes and took a single step forward. The ground vibrated beneath me as the station groaned like a sinking ship. The open door pulsed with darkness, drawing me in. My breath came shallow. My foot hit the carriage floor, cold, damp. The door slid shut behind me with finality. Inside, silence. No voice, no announcements. Only the faint swaying of the carriage as it began to move, though I felt no acceleration. I sat on the floor because there were no seats. My reflection looked back at me from the warped window, pale and trembling. The fog outside thickened until there was nothing left to see at all. Only my own reflection staring back, lips moving with words I hadn't spoken. The train carried me deeper into the dark, and then the lights in the carriage flickered on. Only for a second, enough to show that I was not alone.